Welcome to Trout Unlimited's first cast tying. Today we're going to tie a simple streamer fly. We have different size hooks that we use. They range anywhere from a number 20 to a number 8 all the way up to a big number 2 with stainless steel. And a magnet is a good thing to hold onto your hooks. I set in on our vise and clamp down a number 8 streamer hook. We set the barb in there and we want it to be flat, parallel to the ground. And we anchor it down so you can hear it twang. Next, we want to take our bobbin and we're going to set our thread in, and this is 6/0 black thread. It's kind of strong, a little thicker diameter so it doesn't break. We're going to use a tool that is a bobbin threader. We're going to take this, insert it into our bobbin, and then we're going to put the thread through the diamond area shape here, pull on that. And this helps us thread the bobbin, and we pull it up. We're done with that tool. We want to make sure the thread is not going around the spool, that it's going straight up from the spool into the bobbin. Next, we have a pair of scissors that we use to trim our parts and a bodkin that has a little point to it. We're going to take the thread, and since I'm right-handed, I'm going to take my thumb and my index finger and put it over the middle of the bobbin, and then with my 2 fingers hold the tail end. And take the bobbin, wrap it over the thread in the middle, and wrap it a couple times and move it to the right towards the back of the hook. Now that that's anchored, I can let go, take my scissors and snip off the excess and throw that aside. I'm going to take the bobbin, go back to my grip, and I'm going to wrap it slowly towards the back till I get to right where the flat hits the curve, which is called our tail tie-in point. Right where the flat shank of the hook hits the curve part, right there I'm going to stop. Next, I'm going to take a marabou feather. This is an olive green. We can also use a black marabou feather. We're going to pinch that so that it's about 1 inch long, the same length as our hook, and we're going to lay that down with our left hand over the top of the hook, and then do 1 loose wrap straight down and 1 tight wrap. Give it a couple more wraps. Now anything towards the eye of the hook is all excess. I'm going to lift that up and trim on top. Okay, so there's our marabou tail tied in the back. We're making a woolly bugger is what this streamer is called. Next, I'm going to take a piece of fuzzy chenille string. We only need a little piece, about 3 inches long. I'm going to take that string, and on one end I'm going to defuzz a little bit of the fuzziness to get down to the string. There's 3 strands. I can wet our fingers and spin that thread. I'm going to take the chenille string, lay it down on top of the fly. You can see the black thread here. I'm going to wrap it over the top real slow and then give it a couple tight wraps to anchor that down. Now that I've got this is the body of our fly. Next, I'm going to take what they call grizzly saddle, which is a black and white feather which we can flare out. If we had any fuzzy down at the bottom, we would break that off. We don't need the fuzzy part of the feather, we just need the stems. We're going to lay the tip down right on top at our tail tie-in point. And we're going to tie that feather down in place, give it a couple wraps. Now here we don't want any of these materials to come apart, so what we're going to do is make a half hitch. We let out a little bit of line, we make a peace sign, put our fingers over the string, wrap the string around our fingers, make a little lasso and touch the string to itself, and then put that loop over the hook down to where we want it and then pull down. And that anchors that material. We'll do it one more time. Put the thread over itself, make a little loop, and then pull it down. That's called a half hitch. That's a little knot. Next, we're going to take our bobbin and we're going to slowly wrap it. It doesn't have to be perfect. We just give it some base thread and go up to the front until we get to the eye. We don't want to go in the eye, we just want to let it hang near the front. Next, we're going to take our chenille body string and we're going to wrap this around and make the body of the fly. And just take one hand and grab it and go around the shank all the way up to the front in a big twist pattern until we get to the front. When we get up to the front and we're close, we take the thread, go around the back side, over the top, and that anchors this down. We can put a couple more wraps on there so it doesn't come undone. Grab our scissors, lift up the excess, and trim it. Next, we're going to take our hackle feather, that's what this is called. This is going to make some neat fuzzy arms and legs on this little bug. We're going to take the hackle pliers, open them up, put it on the stem of the feather, and then slowly we're going to take this and wrap it around to make the flared body of the fly. You'll see as I start to wrap it, it starts to twist. You got to make sure that it's flat to the fly so that it flares nice. Make a nice little spiral pattern like this. There we go. Now you can see it's starting to take shape. Get to the front, and right when we get to the front, we're going to stop, take the thread, go behind the feather, and over the top a couple times. Make sure it's anchored. You can get the hackle pliers out of the way, and we can trim off the excess feather that you see here sticking out the front. Trim that off. Now I usually wet my fingers, push back the little hairs here, and then take the thread, and without going into the eye of the hook, we're going to make a little body or a head with some thread. Just going to wrap it probably about 10-15 times and make a little cone shape. Now you can see this. This is the head, and here's the body and legs, and here's the tail of our fly. This is called a woolly bugger. I'm going to put one last half hitch in here in the very end. Pull that down. That anchors the thread, keep it from coming undone, and then we trim off the thread. Next, we're going to take some head cement, which is like super glue, real smelly stuff, and we're going to use our bodkin with a little point on it. Push just a little dab will do you. We're going to put that down on top of the thread, and that seals the thread from coming undone. Makes it look like a shiny head. We don't want to put too much, then that'll cover the eye of the hook. Make sure we seal that glue real good and wipe off our tool. And next we can put this down onto some styrofoam or into a little container and let the glue set up. Now here we have some different flies that I've tied over time, and here's our latest. This is an olive woolly bugger. You can also tie it in the traditional black. I have a crayfish pattern that's got a hook underneath. It's a little more advanced fly. We have a little stone fly, or a humphy they call it, with a base and using some little tails and legs. This is called a caddis fly. It's a tinier curled hook that they use in the spring for steelhead and salmon. And then we have what they call a double hooked steelhead fly, and it has two hooks on it. One at the back here, tied in with 20-pound test, to another hook in the front. This is strictly a steelhead fly using some goose biot and grizzly feathers in the back. And sometimes they put eyes on the front on this fly. So there you have a big variety. Dry flies are used also on the top of the water, and the dry flies that we have, some different trout dry flies, these are classics, have wings on them. And these dry flies here, you can see, have a bright green color to them, and they're kind of iridescent or shiny in the water. These have the white feathers on them, and most of them have a bright red tail. Here's a classic royal coachman and a black gnat that looks like an ant, and we may tie an ant here as our next fly. A great book that I have for a resource is our Concise Handbook of Fly Tying by Skip Morris. This is a simple little book. It costs about $8, and inside it tells you all the different tools you use, the different feathers and materials, the types of hooks and their sizes, and how to do the basics to start and wrap your bodies using dubbing, and also how to tie in wings on dry flies. And then as you get a little more advanced, we move into some salmon flies, or we flare some deer hair. This fancy fly that a gentleman gave me, it took him about 3 hours to make. It's a very fancy deer hair fly, which looks like a little mouse on a big hook, and he used deer hair here and flared it on top. So there's one of my fancier flies. It's also weedless, which is a neat trick to use if you're bass fishing, is to put a 20-pound test line around the backside so it doesn't get caught in the weeds when you throw these deer fly bass bugs out there. Flying ant. There's just two simple materials to it. There's some black chenille fuzz string. We just need a little piece about 3 inches long, and then we have a hackle feather. And we'll take one hackle feather, black, just a medium-sized one, and that's it. We use a small, like about a size number 18 hook. You can have a flat head, not a downturned head on the hook. We clamp that in, tie it down. Okay, we've already threaded a black thread on our bobbin. We're going to take the thread in our left hand, the end, and take our bobbin in the right, lay it down over the hook, and do a couple simple wraps. And just lay down some base thread over the base of the shank of the hook. Okay, next we're going to move our thread back to the tail tie-in point, which is always right where the straight hits the back curve. We're going to trim our excess off, and we're going to take some chenille string. We're going to defuzz the end so we get down to the string in the middle, and we're going to take that string and lay it down on top of the hook. And do one slow wrap and then a couple hard tight wraps on that to anchor it down. Next, I'm going to move my thread to the very middle and let it hang out there. I'm going to take the chenille string, wrap it over the back. This is the butt of the ant. We're going to bring it around the middle and wrap it a couple times here. And we're going to wrap the front of the body of the ant and bring it back to the middle and wrap that in the middle. We're going to pinch down by wrapping about 10-15 times right in the middle, almost on top of itself, a whole bunch of thread, pushing down the fuzzies. What that does, and then trim off the excess, is makes the ant look like a front section and a back section. That's what we want. Right in the middle. Put a few more wraps to make it flat in the center. Push down the fuzzies and let it hang. We're going to take the hackle feather, and we don't want any of the fuzzy parts of the feather, we just want the stem part. So we're going to trim off the fuzzy part. Throw that away. We're going to use the tip of the feather, tie in the very tip, about 1/4 inch, wrap it over the top slow, and then give it a couple tight snugs. Next, we're going to just use our hands, or we could use our hackle pliers and grab the stem of the hook if we want to. And we're going to flare this hackle feather right in the middle. This is going to make it look like wings of a flying ant and legs. We're going to wrap the thread around the excess. And there's your flying ant right there. I'm going to give it a little more material. Wrap it around one more time. Get rid of my pliers. And we're going to trim off the excess of this feather right on top. There we got the wings and the legs of this little ant. Remember, make our little peace sign, wrap it around a lasso, put it over the top, and then pull down. That anchors it. Trim it off, and we're all done. There's our little flying ant. Piece of cake. That works good in the summertime when it rains out right near a bank, because grasshoppers and ants and bees get washed in from the banks when it rains, and this is a good tactic in the midsummer to use a terrestrial, a bug that's there all year long. Thank you.